Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesay is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome. Amazing. Most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show. All right, so I'm sitting here and I'm talking to Steph Lane. And Steph, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. Hello, I am Steph Lane, born and raised in Eastern Iowa. I am a podcast host myself with Woods and Waters Project. And I am a farmer and I'm the Iowa program coordinator for Outdoor Mentors and so many other things. And I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
No, it's cool. Good to have you. Finally have you where our schedules align and able to get together and talk again, and lots to talk about. So let's start with the whole podcast thing. How did that come about? What made you want to do it? And then, how did it turn into a lifestyle?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sure it's like much deeper than I'll even get into here because I could talk about it for forever. But I'm about 2 years in with the podcast. I focus on interviewing just different outdoorsmen, men and women from across the country, and get their story and their perspectives. I have been an outdoorsman my entire life, but I feel like I've never fit in with one hub of outdoorsmen. And what I mean by that is I was kind of raised in this deer hunting, turkey hunting, mossy oak camouflage wearing kind of, redneck stereotype lifestyle, which I love. I live for that. I love that. But I also have always been really into hiking, plant identification, bird ID, foraging, kind of more of like just being at peace with nature. I feel like I'm both kind of like this hippie hunter. And, there's sometimes those are categorized so differently sometimes. And I just felt like I was both, but I felt like those groups really didn't intertwine. And I just thought that was crazy because I think as an outdoorsman, whether you're a hunter, an angler, a hiker, whatever, to the core, we want and do some of those things for the same reason. Like as humans, like we are meant to spend time outside. That is how we are here. That's how we're made. And so I wanted this place where people who you wouldn't think would maybe even be friends, once you get digging into their stories and hear them, just how similar we all are, how unique, but also how similar, and just what the outdoors means to them. Because I think for most people, it's more than just like going to shoot something or picking flowers. Like it's not that. It's much deeper than that. And, back then, I was a lot quieter. I was not nearly as confident in my voice and what I had to say. I worked for a radio station at the time, and I was kind of on my way out of the radio station. But before I left, one of our stations that we had under like our umbrella was an ESPN sports station. And I used to tease the guys like, hey, you don't have any females on this. And they're like, well, what do you want to talk about? And I'm like, well, sports related, all I could really talk about is probably hunting. And on their whiteboard, I wrote "From the Stand with Steph" as just a joke, right? Well, the CEO saw it and she approached me and told me, she's like, I actually like the idea. If you want a few minutes a week to talk about whatever you want related to hunting in the outdoors, it's all you. So she gave me like time with the creative director who helped me learn how to say, like, for example, I had to work a lot on saying hunting instead of hunting. I can't even say it now because I had to like work on it so much. They gave me a few minutes every week. It was really fun. And I knew when I left the radio, I'm like, gosh, I don't want that to stop. And so I'm like, I can start a podcast. I can do that on my own, and putting that all together. And now I'm here 2 years later doing a podcast.
Awesome. No, that's pretty cool. I never knew that. So it's kind of interesting to hear that story like that and how it's, how it all tied in together. Because I
Yeah.
don't think I ever heard that. Um,
Yeah.
so you started doing that. I know last time you and I talked, you were going to guide school. And
Uh-huh.
how did that go? And like, what's your plans with that?
Yeah. I I am obsessed with like learning and getting better as a woodsman overall. And so, part of that was because at the end of the day, most guides, like most hunting guides, didn't go to a formal school. Like that isn't necessarily the route to become a hunting guide. Now it absolutely adds something to the resume and adds something to your experience that most guides won't have. Um, I didn't really know in my head. I definitely plan on guiding on the side. I have a bird dog. I help my boyfriend with the snow goose migration. He's been a guide for 11 years, a snow goose guide for 11 years. I have mentored and helped guide multiple pheasant hunts. I love turkey hunting, waterfowl. I mean, all of it. So I definitely want to guide, but ever since I was a little girl, I grew up hunting, but I was the only female in my family. And as much as I was included in everything, the idea of me becoming a guide or a teacher or like a professional hunter was super downplayed. Honestly, because I'm a female, and it wasn't meant with, I think, any disrespect. It just kind of wasn't heard of, and we didn't really see a lot of it. And I sure as heck didn't know very many women that hunted. But I was always very driven to prove people wrong. I mean, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm probably going to do it. And especially coming from, my family who loves me, thinks I'm great. They just really didn't think that was probably a good option. So fast forward, I'm 30 years old. I have been looking up guide schools for the last couple of years. Most of the guide schools I would find were Western guide schools, which were really awesome, but they're super expensive. And it's a lot of really cool skills like horse packing and things like that in the mountains, which I would love to learn, right? Like that would be so cool. But I'm from Iowa and I plan on staying here and being here for the long haul. So I wanted to find a guide school that was in the Midwest. Sorry, my dog has the zooms and I don't know how loud that is. He is like rampaging in my house.
It's all good.
Like, here he comes. He's gonna, yeah. So, uh, so the reason I'm talking about being 30 years old, my 30th birthday was July 19th, and I found this guide school in South Dakota. So a Midwest guide school that focused on upland hunting, waterfowl, snow goose, and deer hunting, and then also dog training. And I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And the first day of the guide school was on July 19th, my 30th birthday. So as a gift to myself, I put myself into guide school. And it was an awesome experience. It helped me with a lot of my confidence because it helped me realize not so much, honestly, I was kind of surprised by this, but not so much the areas that I didn't know or I'm not great at, but actually really showed me like how much I do know and how much I've downplayed myself. We did real life scenarios of, picking the tree stand, calling the shots on birds, picking the spot, waterfowl hunting, putting decoy spreads out for snow goose. It was very hands-on. We did client walking them through fields and like just things people do, right? Not pointing their gun up, not having their gun on safety, questions they ask. I mean, they played the part. It was role playing the entire week. So it was just really cool. I got an opportunity to work with that guide service after. And, at the time I couldn't just take that, but it just built my confidence up a lot. And I mean, really, the connection I made from the people I was in class with and what I learned from them, the things I learned that I didn't know, I mean, it was worth every penny and it was worth all my time. whether I use that as like my next step into guiding or not, I just loved every second of it. It was awesome.
No, that's cool. I mean, especially if you ever did want to actually guide, or even just as being a mentor, being able to know that you're taking the proper precautions and doing things to ensure the safety of others that you might not normally think of, because you haven't encountered those. Whereas, experienced guides have probably seen just about anything and everything that possibly could happen out there in the field. Um, to be able to know that, that's a good experience, which also ties into your full-time job, which actually is a coordinator for. So you can go ahead and finish that for me and kind of talk about that, because that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So as of September, I became the Iowa program coordinator for a nonprofit called Outdoor Mentors, Pass It On Outdoor Mentors. We're based out of Wichita, Kansas. I'm the actual first Iowa employee. We've been around in some capacity for, I believe, like 20 years, and we just expanded into Iowa. Our focus is getting youth and shooting sport athletes out hunting. So I coordinate all of that. So I'm finding the hunters, the land, and the mentors and making all of that happen. I have the entire state of Iowa. Like I said, I just started in September. So we're building building the relationships. It's a contract in partnership with the Iowa DNR. So we're fully supported by them. And it's awesome. Our focus too, sometimes when people hear that our focus is on shooting sport athletes, that can either get them excited or be like, well, why not all youth? And it is all youth. Anyone who wants to join who's hunter certified is more than welcome. We want that. But kind of the idea behind the shooting sport focus is, people might not know this, but when you're talking about trap shooting, like trap shooting athletes, Iowa makes up 23% of trap shooting athletes in the country.
Hmm, it's
So
interesting.
I just think that, yeah, there's a ton of them in the state of Iowa. In Kansas, there's about 1,700 trap shooting athletes, both high school and collegiate, in the state of Kansas, and we're just shy of 300 hunts a year in the state for those athletes and kids. In Iowa, we have just shy of 4,200 athletes, and so the opportunity to get all these kids out hunting is exciting. They have experience with a firearm. 70% of them are hunters ed certified, because it's part of their safety to become a trap shooting athlete. So they don't necessarily hunt, but they have the certification to take that next step. So they're certified, they're safe. Now they just need someone to take them hunting, right? So when we can focus in on our group like that, that barrier is kind of out of the way, but now we can get them out, and we can get them out on multiple species.
So what kind of species are you guys targeting for these kids then? I mean, is it mostly upland, or is it like deer and waterfowl, or what's kind of the game plan there?
Yeah. So we have goals for each type of hunting. One of the things that is a little tricky to manage is, since we're based out of Kansas, and as we expand into other states, because that's ultimately the plan. Um, as you know, as any hunter who has ever hunted out of state knows, the laws, regulations, seasons, all those things are different from state to state, and it kind of can like throw you off. Like, you think you have it understood, and then you're like, nope, I don't. So we're kind of learning as we go here, but just so far since September, we've gotten about 100 kids out hunting since the end of September in the state of Iowa, and we've done pheasant hunts, a couple deer hunts. We've done raccoon, squirrel, rabbit, um, goose, duck, and I think that's it so far. And now I'm starting to plan for the spring turkey season.
So when these kids are doing this, like the whitetail hunts, are they doing like a youth hunt, and is it a firearm, or are you doing some archery as well?
So so right now, um, there's like a lot of layers to that. So right now, we were focusing on the shotgun muzzleloader seasons in Iowa. So like in Kansas, they have a rifle season. We don't have that in Iowa.
Right.
Um, and in Iowa, you also do a lot of like party hunting, like pushing. We don't necessarily want to do that with new hunters. So it's more of like an individual. There's a mentor, the new hunter, and a guardian, and they're going out and shotgun hunting for deer right now, or muzzleloader. Archery, I coach archery. Archery is like near and dear to my heart. That is a big interest of mine to help us expand into that. The layer with archery that you have, though, is just, as you know, a lot of folks probably understand, target shooting with a bow is a lot different than going hunting with a bow. Trap shooting, it's not the same as hunting necessarily, but you are able to transition that gun much easier, like in a matter of a couple days, into hunting. Where archery, it's not that simple, right? Like if you're not already an archery hunter, you can't just take your bow and go hunting the next day. So there's some things there that we'd have to kind of work through, I think, to do some archery hunts, which I would be really passionate about doing. I've helped teach bow hunting to many people, but there's just a lot of layers there, especially for one person to do by themselves. So
Sounds like you need a team.
yeah, we will be hiring more in Iowa in the very near future. So
That's cool. So
yeah.
let's kind of break that down then. As far as like the gun hunting, are you guys doing youth seasons only for like the deer hunting, or are you kind of letting them hunt throughout the regular deer season? I don't know how Iowa works exactly. If it's like a week long
Yeah.
season, like I know in Illinois it's like 3 days and then 4 days, so it's a little bit different than you guys, I think.
Yeah. So when I say youth and like shooting sport athletes, so our hunters are anywhere from the age of 11 to about 22, 23 years old, because they are in high school, or they're usually part of a trap team. So to be part of a trap team, you have to be like middle school age to college age, and hunter certified. So in the state of Iowa, you have to be about 11 years old to be hunter certified. So our hunters are going to be from 11 to, again, like early 20s when you're graduating college. Um, so if they fall in the youth category of under 16 years old, we will try to do a youth hunt specifically. But typically, I mean, it's youth. It's like the youth of like America, right? But it's not youth in the sense of like the season, if that
Right.
makes
Yeah. No,
sense.
absolutely. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So then, when you guys are doing the land, like, is there some type of agreement you have to come to with the landowner? Or is it all private land that you guys are utilizing, or is there like some public that's involved with that?
Yeah. So it's everything. I mean, we utilize public land a lot. There's a lot of reasons behind that, because I mean, I'm sure I'm talking to like the choir, preaching to the choir, uh, publicly challenged, but we do a lot of focus on public land. If we can and it makes sense and we can put the kids in a safe, scenario, right? Um, because it just, like, that's what's available. And if you want kids to keep going, adults, anybody to keep going hunting, put them in real life scenarios where they can go back, right? But also we're utilizing private land. We partner with a bunch of preserves. I mean, currently, to get that many kids out hunting every year, um, you kind of have to lean on preserves where you can, and we're really grateful for them. Like we have a hunt coming up in March, pheasant hunt, and we just had a bunch in February, and they filled up, and they were great. So we also partner with groups like Iowa Heritage Foundation, Neil Smith Wildlife Refuge, where it's a part of like special access. So it's not necessarily private, but you have to kind of get permission ahead of time to utilize for youth, in different hunting events. So it's all over the place, man. It just depends on the area. We're trying to go where the kids are, where the athletes are, and they are scattered across the state of Iowa. So wherever we can get our hands on and people are nice enough to let us use, that's what we're going to do. So it's everything.
No, that's pretty cool. So if somebody did want to, open up their land or something like that, how would they go about that so they could actually let
Yeah.
somebody?
Yeah. They could just contact me, contact Outdoor Mentors, and we are insured. Something that I think helps ease the mind of a private landowner is if someone got hurt on their property, they are not going to be responsible for that. Like, our insurance covers that. I know sometimes that's like a worry. So just understanding that our hunters and mentors are going to be registered through us, through our program before going on the land. So they're protected that way, both the landowner and the individuals hunting. And it's just allowing us access. It's not anything crazy. It's just kind of giving us the verbal permission. Um, and yeah, it's pretty easy from there. And then just I communicate with them as much as they want me to or need to. Um, so they know what to expect, who's going to be there, what time. And we do ask all the hunters to send thank yous to landowners and the mentors after. I hope most of them do, but we ask them to send thank yous, because I think that's a big deal.
I think that is too. I mean, that's something, when I get a handwritten note, even with a product I buy or something, if it's handwritten, I mean, it shows that there's somebody there that actually cares. It's not just like, hey, let's ship this out, let's get it over with. A handwritten note speaks volumes to a person's actual personality and the respect that they have for people that either, are utilizing something that somebody else has or, purchasing from somebody. So that's pretty cool. It's nice that you guys do that because it does show that, these kids are respectful and they do want to learn and want to continue to have that relationship. So that's pretty neat. But so I got to ask you, like, what I've never really worked with youth other than my own kids pretty much or like my nephews and stuff, but like what's some of the most rewarding experiences that you've had? Do you have anything that like speaks out to you and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best scenario I could possibly think of that happened to me?
Yeah. I've been a part of a lot of the hunts and mentored multiple of them. One of the hardest parts of my job for me is, I'm the only person in Iowa doing this. So um, I don't get to go to every hunt because there's no possible way I could, right? Sometimes we have multiple hunts going on in a day across the state. But the ones I've been a part of and then the stories I hear, it's just like there's so many good things. One, the hunts that I'm not even a part of, like when a mom or dad reaches out to me and sends me pictures and is telling me like how grateful they are that their kid got to do this, because sometimes mom and dad don't hunt and they're learning a lot too. So they ask a lot of questions and that is really rewarding for me. Like when they call and I just help ease their mind and then they get their kid on like their first or second hunt. Um, and then they send me pictures like, oh my gosh, that's like one of my favorite parts of my job. Just the photos I get. And I get photos from people who go hunting outside of our program just to show me what they got. Like that's such a cool feeling. But the one-on-one experiences, like one of my favorite hunts, it was -13 here in January, and everything's frozen, obviously. Geese are not flying, but we had this goose hunt planned. And we got it down to 3 kids that were registered, and I was kind of like, I was helping mentor this hunt too. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to sit through this. I was kind of nicely pushing them, like, I want you guys to be warm and safe because it was going to be brutally cold. Like it almost was borderline. No one should be out hunting. But it's just the way it all came together. I had multiple friends and family friends do some scouting for me and for my boyfriend and some friends of ours to help mentor this hunt. And they're like, you know what? The geese are coming in this spot at 3 o'clock. Like they're going to be there. You're going to have to sit most of the day, but they're going to be there. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. There's geese flying. This is going to be great. It's going to be really miserable and cold, but it'll work out. So we had 2 of the 3 come from like an hour and a half away to come to this goose hunt. And then one of the kids that was more local, his dad dropped him off. And his dad used to be a longtime hunter. He used to hunt out in Canada and all this stuff. And, now his boy, who's part of this hunt, is just he's just like obsessively getting into all of this. Like he loves goose hunting, wants to buy like his own trailer full of like decoys, his own spread, and he's just hyped up. This kid is just so passionate. You can he just never stopped talking about it. It was awesome. Well, we set up the decoy spread, the blinds and everything. And we were set up before noon. And we were like, you know what? Let's all like go to lunch. Let's not sit through these blinds too long. So we took them all to McDonald's and we all like sat and like just chatted and got to know each other. And then the single kid whose dad dropped him off, happened to come by McDonald's too. And we're like, come eat with us, and he comes and eats with us. And then we had enough spare clothes that we invited the dad to join the hunt with us. and we had one more spot in the line. We're like, just come hunt with us. Like, you're an experienced hunter. It'd be cool to have you too, just be here. And so he got to do that with his son and like with us and like get to know him. And he has now offered to like officially mentor more hunts going forward. His son has joined us on 3 different hunts. So he's goose hunted, pheasant hunted, and then he went pheasant hunting again, but he convinced 2 of his friends to come. So he then recruited 2 more kids to come hunting with us. And just like the whole experience of being able to be there with like a father and son hunting together, building these relationships with them. He's one of the dads that sends me photos like outside of our hunting programs. Now he wants to be a mentor. His son is recruiting people to go hunting. Like, that is so cool. Like, that is so cool to me, and shows that like, one hunt can make a difference. It doesn't always, but it can. And I don't know. It's awesome. I don't know what else to say. It's awesome.
No, that's pretty cool. It's good to see that, there's a return rate and these kids are getting hooked on it. And even if the kid's dad was a hunter, I mean, I don't know if that sparked an interest in him to maybe get out and hunt more, or maybe he didn't hunt as much as he used to, but now he's out there and actually willing, he's seen the program and how it works and actually willing to help mentor other kids as well as his own. Mm-hmm. That's pretty neat. Anytime anybody can give back like that and be able to, better the future generations, that's a pretty cool thing to do.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by overpriced wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I heard that Mint Mobile wireless plans are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they sell wireless service online. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
I don't know if you're familiar with, just throwing this out there. This is like, I'm already passionate about this subject, whether it's mentoring a kid or an adult. Like, I think both need to be need to happen simultaneously, honestly, but that's a whole nother soapbox. But I just came back from an R3 conference. If you're not familiar with R3, it's recruit, retain, reactivate. It's about, keeping and recruiting new hunters, right? And the reasoning, the deeper reasons behind that, like not just for license sales, but for conservation, for keeping the sport and the life, the life alive, right? And there was a lot of really interesting statistics that came up from all the research that's been done. And this is a Midwest R3 conference, so this is referring to like the 13 Midwest states. And some of the things I thought were really fascinating, the stats that I like remember, is that only 15% of hunters get a license of some kind, like hunt every year. So only 15% of all hunters hunt every single year. So, I think with how low like hunting numbers are, I think a lot of people understand that we're losing about 4 to 5% of hunters every single year and have been consistently since the 80s. That's wild, right? Like, most hunters are not hunting every year, like nothing. They're not squirrel hunting, deer hunting. They're not hunting every year at all. I think that's fascinating. And oh my gosh, there were so many things that they spit facts that are just shocking. Like, they're kind of scary, but they're also very interesting. And I think that's why it's so important for programs like this and mentors and people just doing these things. Like, we're kind of fighting against some big numbers there, like there have to be other things in motion to keep this sport and life alive, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating, and it's definitely an interesting dynamic, especially when you say only 15% hunts every year. But sometimes it seems like, and I know I've read articles about it and like the whole COVID effect and how it has, shopping and stuff like that at grocery stores and seeing bare shelves, and it made people want to go out and like learn that lifestyle. I'm sure a lot of them realized how hard it was, didn't know what they were doing, and that would be part of the non-retention as far as that goes. But it's interesting. And then I read something else, though. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was basically talking about if we actually retained every single hunter. So it's like a weird balance that if you retained every hunter that you actually activated, you would not have the wildlife model to sustain the amount of hunters that would be there. So it's like
Yeah.
it's weird, and it's almost a double-edged sword, because it's like you want to recruit people, you want to educate them on it, you want to get them out there, and we know that we're not going to keep them all, and we hope that we keep a lot of them. But at the same time, you would almost destroy that economic model if you got an over amount of people hunting. It's a weird thing like that. It's
Yeah. And, and this is just like my opinion, because we talk about that. So what's really cool about these conferences is we get all these different diverse groups of people in a room, and we kind of just spit questions and ideas like this, right? Like, how many hunters is too many hunters? What's the end goal? Like, at what point is this a problem if we get too many hunters, right? So that is definitely a conversation. We are so far from that,
yeah.
that it's like it's like something that should be addressed, because if we ever start seeing that growth, we should, understand. But this is just my feeling. I think the outdoors is for everybody. I think that if everyone was exposed to hunting in a couple different ways, whether they became a hunter or not, I think it would make a huge impact on our world of just like how we take care of Mother Nature, spending time outside, our physical and mental, emotional health, like regardless if they become a hunter. So there's so many more things than just like hunting sales. But, at the end of the day, like the reason that it skyrocketed from COVID is people had more time, and people put way too much on their plate. I mean, in myself included, and if hunting isn't something that is a priority to them, or the outdoors isn't a priority right away, other things are going to take its place. And I think that we can make a big dent in hunting and fishing and outdoor participation. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's not everyone is it's not going to click for everybody. Like I think it should. I wish it did, but it's just not going to, and those COVID numbers, they've already gone back down. Like it wasn't enough to change anything the next year. Right. So it's cool. It's like super interesting, and I would love to see more hunters, truly. But yeah, I don't know if we'll ever get there to that number of where it's too much. I don't know.
I don't think we'll ever get there. And I think the partial reason for that is, I mean, success rates. Let's look at actual success rates of hunters. And if you even take it even further, you just said 15% of people hunt every year. Well,
right.
Or buy a license every year to hunt. Out of that 15%, maybe I'd say 10% or less of that 15% are successful year after year.
Right.
So
right.
The fact that there's such a low success rate in a day and age of instant gratification, to where people just want things right now, and you can click on your phone and swipe, and next thing you know, the same day something's delivered to your door, it doesn't fit that model, and that you have to put in effort and work and time to make these things happen. People don't want to do that. And it's sad. It's truly sad that we have such a disconnect with everything around us and the actual environment, and to think that everything goes at its own pace in nature, and in reality you can, in the real world, so called, even though it's not, which really it's almost just a metaverse anymore, but that goes at a different pace than everything else around you. And you have to realize that you have to slow yourself down to immerse yourself in it. And actually, like my buddy Johnny Mack says, participating in nature rather than being a spectator. And that's
Yeah.
a big difference. I hope people get that experience, whether or not it's even hunting. If they want to get out and forage or just, see nature and experience it, I think that's a great thing. As you mentioned, being able to help with stress relief and just grounding yourself back and elevating your mood. And I got up this morning and I went for a nice walk and looked for sheds and didn't find any and didn't find mini mushrooms or anything really, but it was cool because I saw the biggest rub I think I have ever seen. And at first I almost thought something was wrong with the tree. I was looking at it and I was like, that tree is just losing its bark. Like nothing scraped it that bad to where it was just, there were shreds of bark on the ground. And I still didn't believe that it was an actual deer rub until I got up closer and saw another tree, a pile of poop, and some hair. And then I was like, no way. It was amazing. And just that experience, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But what's weird is I've still got deer. I didn't find any sheds. I've still got deer on camera that have their antlers. So, I'm anticipating like finding that and going, okay, a deer that could do that. I'm looking forward to going back and finding those sheds if I can, because he's got to be massive. Just a monster. It was almost as tall as me, how high he got up. That's crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is crazy. That's exciting.
So with that being said, and I said I didn't find any mushrooms, I know you're doing something cool at your other job that you're doing right now. It's kind of a side job. You told me you're working at a farm. Can you kind of go talk about that? Because it's pretty neat. I always love it when people talk about different stuff and learning new things, right? So what are you doing there?
Yeah. So I should preface that I have no farming. Up until this point, I was killing succulents. Okay. So like I don't have any farming gardening experience leading up to my part-time job, which I work on an organic farm. I am the assistant farmhand there. Why they let me do that, I don't know. But when I was in corporate America for years as my career, and when the full-time opportunity that we talked about with Outdoor Mentors, when that came up, it was initially a part-time job to kind of like prove that this is an important work. And I went full-time really fast, which was really awesome and exciting. But I took a pay cut, took a big risk to join Outdoor Mentors and do this job that I was, I couldn't believe it's real. Like I love my job. But the risk was worth it, but I had to supplement my income somehow. And just going forward and like who I want to be, what my goals are, I would like to have a small homestead of my own in 10 years or less. I'd like to have some acres, gardens, flowers, vegetables, animals, and but I don't come from that background. I don't have anyone really teaching me that. I'm like, what the heck? So I just Googled farmhand and found this farm that was like 20 minutes away from where I lived. And like in the description, it was basically like, no experience required. We just want someone who's passionate about learning and we will teach you everything. I was like, deal. And this group of people is so incredible to work with. But currently, my current project is I'm working on growing microgreens inside until it's the planting time, which we'll be planting in our outside tunnels this next week when the weather hopefully warms up a little bit. And I'm also working on inoculating logs to grow shiitake and oyster mushrooms on them. I didn't even know that was a thing until a few months ago. The farmhand that is kind of teaching me everything, he is incredible. He is definitely like the fun guy master, and like reads about it, studies it. And we're kind of learning together, but it's really neat to be a part of. And he is sometimes he just leaves me like, here's what you're going to work on, YouTube it, figure it out and he just leaves me at the farm to figure it out. So that's what I've been doing. And I'm working on growing shiitake and oyster mushrooms on logs inside.
That's pretty cool. I
bizarre.
actually just started doing that myself, and I inoculated my first logs a couple months ago, and then we had an extreme cold snap to where they needed like a month at 40 degrees so they could actually start taking over the log. And I was like, crap. So I actually brought them all inside my garage and stacked them in my garage so they'd get enough time to like propagate the log and be able to thrive. So it's pretty cool to know. I don't really know anything about it, but knowing that, other people are doing it and it's going to work, and it's going to be pretty neat to have so many mushrooms. Actually, I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with all of them that I did, but who cares? Because I'll figure that's a good problem to have. But it's neat to learn those different things. And so are you guys like taking your own cultures and stuff like that and putting it in sawdust to get the mycelium to start and grow? Or how far do you guys do it? Or do you guys buy inoculated sawdust?
So we purchased, I think we're going to be trying in different ways as we go, because the really cool thing about the farm like I work at is so the farm hand that I am under at the farm, he comes from like kind of a farming homesteading background. So he really is like the experienced person on the farm. Everyone else is kind of new. We're all kind of new in this together, and it's kind of a beautiful thing. So we're experimenting a lot and changing what we do a lot. So currently we pre-purchased it. So there are logs that we have out on like our back, like 7 acres. We have them sitting out specifically. They're specific, wood for shiitake versus oyster mushrooms. Those are ours. But then we purchased the sawdust mixture. And that's what we're doing currently, but I don't think that's what we're always going to be doing. Like, we're going to be trying some new things here soon too.
That's cool. That's pretty cool. So you guys have plans for like growing other types of mushrooms besides that, like wine caps or anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. Ben, the farmhand I work with, he's definitely the mastermind behind that. And a lot of it is going to be based on our need from so we have at the barn, which is kind of like our event space that is rented out for weddings and farm to table events. And we have like a brick oven, like pizza maker and stuff. So the public comes there for events and this farm to table experience. And we have incredible cooks that work on the farm. So based on whatever they want to experiment with, or food that they want to try, they kind of help lead us in that direction. So whatever they're thinking, we'll start making happen. So it starts with like the cooks and it works its way down to me, like, figure this out. So I don't know. I know we will. And they do so many unique things with it. Like these chefs are incredible. Like I tried this, they made it into a powder. They did chicken of the woods, and they made it into like a powder, and we put it on like our pizzas and like different food. It's incredible. I've never tasted anything like it, but I wish I had this like in my seasoning cabinet. Like it's so good. So they do some really neat stuff.
So are you guys actually growing the chicken of the woods, or is that like something you guys foraged?
Actually, I foraged a bunch, and so did the farm manager.
That's cool. So let's kind of talk about that then.
Yeah.
How has your foraging game improved then from like, what was it, like 2 years ago, probably right around the time you started the podcast and I started mine.
Yeah.
I know you were kind of on a foraging journey as well. How has that evolved, and where is it taking you?
Yeah. I'm so excited with like where it's going soon. So between the farm and some awesome people I've met who are teaching me a lot of cool things about foraging, and some books that I'm going to be reading and all that. I'm going to be learning a lot more this year. I'm taking some foraging kind of one-on-one classes also. So I'm really pumped about that. But gosh, so when you and I like connected a couple years ago, I know you've probably felt this. Like I would share about, oh, I found a puffball. Oh, I found some golden oysters, and I would share that on my page. Well, I'm familiar with those mushrooms at the time. Those were the ones that I'm like, I can look at that and I know what that is just from time in the woods, not kind of self-taught really. But because I shared it, so many people will ask me and send me pictures of mushrooms and they'll be like, what is this? And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what that is. But I want to be as helpful as I can. And I'll tell people like if I don't know, like I don't I won't make a recommendation because I don't want to poison somebody or make them sick. But I got a lot of enjoyment out of like figuring that stuff out with other people. So I downloaded some different apps like mushroom identification apps, started doing a lot of research. I squirrel hunted more the last 2 years than I've ever squirrel hunted in my life. And squirrel hunting time is like a great time to forage. Like most of the time I come back with mushrooms, not a squirrel. And when I come back with a squirrel and a mushroom, that's like a win. Like I'm obsessed with that. That's so much fun to me. And so it's just time in the woods and constantly educating myself. When I started at the farm, I knew that they were experimenting with different mushrooms and stuff, and the chefs were. And I'm like, hey, if I find a bunch, like, do you guys want them? They're like, yeah, absolutely. And so it was just became really fun for me to like start foraging for other people, not even myself, if that makes sense. Like it was really rewarding to come to work or go to other people and be like, look what I have, I have this bundle for you. Like that was really fun for me. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I think I answered the question, but I can identify a lot more than I could 2 years ago. That's for sure. And it's just time in the woods. I mean, that's
what I find too, is the more time you spend in the woods, the more stuff you discover. One of the things I found, especially for me, is like, I know it, but I doubt myself. So I'm like, I know what that is. I can't think of what it is though. And I'm like, just leave it, and walk away from it. And then I get home and I flip through a book and I'm like, I knew what that was. But it's just like, there's that innate fear and self-doubt kind of instilled in you. And I don't even know how it happened. Like, how did we get away from that to where you don't realize or know any of those things anymore when it used to be common knowledge? It's kind of crazy, but hopefully, as time goes on, I'll be more confident in myself and be able to identify more.
Yeah, I definitely think mushrooms is where I started. And I think for some people like different podcasts I listen to, I've heard the opposite, like don't start with mushrooms, start with like other things. But mushrooms is really what I started with, like the morels.
Yeah.
I feel like that's like the gateway drug into foraging. And then you have oysters and then golden oysters and then chicken of the woods, and you have that prepared for you one time and you're like, okay, this might even be better than morels. And then it just kind of went from there. Like I'm on a quest for pawpaws and like from pawpaw tree. Do you know what a pawpaw is?
Yeah. Have you found any yet? It's the only native North American tropical fruit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know where some are. By the time I knew that they were there, the deer had already gotten to them all. But I know where some are due to some awesome friends who don't mind sharing that with me, but I'm not going to share it on here.
That's awesome, because I have been on a quest as well. And I've often told people, I'm like, I think I'm just going to purchase and propagate a whole bunch of pawpaw seeds and just be like the Johnny Appleseed of pawpaws, because I can't find any. And it makes me so mad that I'm just going to go on like a guerrilla planting spree and plant them everywhere that they're not. So who knows? I don't know if that'll happen, but that would be really cool to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That is like my next thing. And then also persimmons. Like there are persimmons where this pawpaw tree is also. And so just like expanding out towards that, and then a kind of like unofficial new mentor of mine. His name is Jeff. He is a professional like commercial trapper. I took one of his classes and then just befriended him because he talks my language, man. Like he's interested in all these different things. And I was just picking his brain. And he suggested that I get the book, The Herbalist, which is an old book. It's kind of like the OG of kind of like some plant ID stuff. So I'm getting that, and I'm going to read and like study that. But I know that's going to be kind of like, that's next on my list to complete and to just study more and just understand some identification stuff, uses for these things. Like that's really important to me, like other ways to use mushrooms and fruit and roots and all of that. I think that stuff is fascinating. Like as much as I can learn in my life, my time here on earth, like I'm going to try to do. And I don't know, it gets me all jacked up.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So like, have you made any like mushroom tinctures or anything like that? Or is that kind of on the list of stuff to do?
Mushroom what?
Tinctures?
I haven't.
I just made my first ones not that long ago. And then somebody's like, oh, you're supposed to bottle them on a full moon because it does something. I'm like, well, I don't know about all that. But what I do know is I did bottle it, and I put them in my tea and stuff like that. But I'm slowly progressing into the other stuff and uses for medicinal uses and stuff like that as well. So that's cool to see, like-minded people around knowing these cool things and learning. And...
Well, isn't it like, if you think about just like humans existing, like only the last couple hundred years is this like bizarre to hear about, you know what I mean? Like this was like life. Like we're such a, like how we live now is such a small blip, and compared to like the last tens of thousands of years of how humans lived, whether you're talking about foraging or medicinal uses for plants and mushrooms or hunting, it's like crazy to think about like this way that we live now as a human race in, in developed, I guess, countries, I suppose, is that's bizarre. The other stuff isn't really bizarre.
It is, although people think it is bizarre, which is weird. That like I said kind of earlier, is like the whole dynamic has shifted, and I find it strange that it's shifted that way. And then so easily has it instilled that innate fear in everybody that they're just, oh no, you can't do that. You can't eat that. You're going to poison yourself. That's what most people say, is you're going to poison yourself. Oh, I don't want to eat that. And it's like, man, I don't think you understand. There's food all around us, and we need to be able to learn it and find it. And who knows, maybe one day you'll need that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
absolutely.
Steph, it's been awesome talking to you. I think this is probably a good jump off point here. It's cool to catch up with you and like see what you're learning and how much has kind of evolved and changed from your almost past life, we could say, compared to where you're at now. And it's pretty cool. So you want to tell everybody where they can find you and your podcast, and if they want to get involved with what you're doing in Iowa with the mentorship and everything?
Yeah. So I'm pretty easy to find. Sometimes I think I might be a little bit too easy to find. So if you go on Instagram, my name is Steph Lane, StephlAne, or at Wild and Route, which is Wild ENROUTE, on Instagram, or my website, my podcast, my events that I do personally are woodsandwatersproject.com. And then outdoormentors.org is how you would find me on Outdoor Mentors. All my contact information is on there. So whether Instagram, my personal website, or outdoormentors.org, I am easy to find.
Awesome.
You'll see a picture of me and all my contact information.
That's cool. Thanks for coming on, Steph.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.